Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into Mughal India today, a period that lasted, well, over 3 centuries.
Wow, that's a long time. 1500s to the mid
We
1800s.
got it. And get this, our sources. We've got historical accounts, architectural studies, even personal memoirs. The whole shebang.
Sounds like a rich tapestry of information.
It is. And we're going to use it to understand how the Mughals, a Muslim dynasty ruling a largely Hindu population, impacted daily life, customs, and religious practices. Talk about a cultural melting pot.
Yeah, Mughal India was a fascinating mix. I think what really stands out is how the emperors, their policies interacted with the existing, local traditions that were already there.
Right. So let's rewind a bit. The Mughal Empire kicks off in 1526 and goes all the way to 1857. Pretty good run, huh?
Definitely a significant era, and you had some real heavy hitters in terms of emperors. You can't discuss the Mughals without mentioning, Akbar.
Oh, yeah, Akbar,
Yeah.
known for his religious tolerance.
Exactly. And of course, there's Shah Jahan, the guy behind the Taj Mahal.
Yeah, the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
Bucket list material right there.
For sure. Each emperor brought his own, perspective to ruling, and that had a direct impact on everyone living under Mughal rule.
Like how they lived their lives.
Exactly. Everything from laws to, social customs.
Fascinating. Now, back to Akbar. He abolished the jizya tax on non-Muslims. That's a big deal for a Muslim ruler, right?
It was a pretty radical move at the time, but Akbar understood that to rule effectively, he needed a system that worked for everybody, different faiths and all.
So it was like a way to unite the people.
In a sense, yeah. He even went as far as building the Ibadat Khana, which translates to house of worship.
A house dedicated to worship. What was that all about?
Well, he invited scholars from all different religions, Hindus, Jains, Christians, everybody. They'd have these philosophical, theological discussions.
Wow. Imagine being a fly on the wall during those conversations.
Right. I mean, that's pretty progressive, even by today's standards.
It really is.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just tolerance. It was like actively encouraging dialogue.
Absolutely. And I think it's worth noting that Akbar's approach was influenced by Sufism.
Sufism. Remind me.
It's a mystical, inclusive branch of Islam. They emphasize a more personal understanding of faith and that emphasis on tolerance. It wasn't just an elite thing.
You're saying it trickled down to everyday folks.
Yeah, we see evidence of religious syncretism all over Mughal society. Basically like a cultural fusion, but with religion.
Okay, you've used the term syncretism a couple of times. Can you unpack that for our listeners?
Sure. It's like blending different religious ideas and practices. For example, during the Mughal period, there's this Hindu devotional movement called the Bhakti movement.
Okay, I've heard of that.
So they emphasize this personal connection with the divine, right? And that resonated with some Sufi ideas.
So you're saying there was this cross-pollination of ideas happening between different religious communities.
Exactly. It's this give and take that's super fascinating.
And you know what else was a blend of cultures?
What's that?
Mughal architecture, like how they blended Islamic and Hindu artistic elements. Another example of this fusion, wouldn't you say?
A perfect example. Just look at Humayun's tomb. You've got the classic Islamic elements like the dome, the arches, calligraphy, and then boom.
Hindu elements.
Right. You've got chhatras, these beautiful pavilions, jallis, intricately carved lattice screens. It's a mix and match marvel.
Sounds like they were pretty good at taking different styles and creating something totally new.
They were visionaries, in a way. But it wasn't just for looks. These choices, they meant something. Like the inscriptions, the ornamentation, they weren't just decorations. They were sending a message.
A message. About what?
Power, piety, imperial authority, the whole 9 yards.
So they're sending a message through architecture. That's clever.
Very clever.
So we've talked emperors, policies, this fascinating blend of cultures and religions. But what about, the average Joe? What was daily life like for them in Mughal India?
Oh, they definitely felt the impact of all this. I mean, imagine, even farmers, merchants, artisans, they are all living in this world shaped by Mughal rule. Let's take the social structure, for example.
Okay, social structure, what was that like?
Well, Mughal society, like much of pre-Mughal India, was really influenced by the caste system.
Ah, the caste system.
But the Mughals, they added their own flavor to it with their centralized administration. New hierarchies popped up, bureaucratic systems, the whole shebang.
So like a more organized system?
Exactly. You need that when you're running a massive empire.
Makes sense. What about the economy? What was that like for, the everyday person?
Well, agriculture, it was still the backbone of everything.
Like farms and crops and all that.
Exactly. Imagine fields stretching as far as you can see,
Mhm.
wheat, rice, cotton, all the essentials.
Gotcha. So food was covered.
But the Mughals, they weren't just about farming. They also really encouraged trade. And cities like Agra and Delhi, they became these bustling trade hubs.
Those were some of the big Mughal cities, right?
Exactly. And from the sources you sent me, man, these marketplaces sound incredible.
Tell me more.
Imagine spices from the Malabar coast, silks all the way from China, precious stones from Central Asia, all flowing through these markets.
Like a global bazaar. I can almost smell those spices.
And it wasn't just about the goods. Ideas were traded too, customs, artistic styles. It was a really cosmopolitan scene.
It's amazing how connected the world already was back then.
Right, and it's through these interactions, these connections between people from all over that you really see the mosaic of Mughal India come alive.
It's like all these different threads weaving together to create this vibrant tapestry.
Exactly.
So we've explored like the big picture, right? The emperors, their policies, the blending of cultures, all that jazz. And we've zoomed in on the everyday folks too. But what I'm really curious about is like the after effects. How did Mughal rule leave its mark on India, even after the empire itself was gone?
Ooh, that's a great question. And one we're going to tackle next. The Mughal influence on India's art, architecture, language, even its cuisine, it's huge. You can still see it today.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
Centuries later, and the Mughal influence is still there in India.
Oh, it's definitely woven into the culture. You see it everywhere, from the buildings to the food to, well, even the language. They really had a knack for, like, taking different things and making them distinctly Mughal.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. We talked about Mughal architecture before, those amazing buildings like Humayun's tomb that blended Islamic and Hindu elements. But did that style just like disappear after the Mughals?
Not at all. It's like they set the standard for grandeur, the detail, the scale. It continued to inspire architects and builders for like centuries.
Yeah.
Even now, if you look at some palaces and mosques, you can see echoes of that Mughal design in the arches, the domes, the decorations.
So it's like their architectural style got like passed down through generations of builders.
Exactly. And it's not just the buildings. Think about Mughal art. Those miniature paintings, the calligraphy, they were masters at that.
Yeah, you sent me some examples. They were incredible, super detailed.
And those traditions, they didn't just vanish. They evolved. Artists today still draw inspiration from those Mughal styles, adapting them, giving them a modern twist.
It's amazing how art can have that kind of staying power centuries later.
It really is. Okay, but let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk language. You know Urdu, right? Millions speak it in India and Pakistan today.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it has deep roots in the Mughal period. It's kind of a linguistic fusion, actually.
What do you mean?
So Urdu emerged as the language of the Mughal court. It was a blend of Persian, the official language, and Hindi, which was what the everyday people spoke. It's a beautiful example of, how cultures can come together to create something new.
Like a linguistic melting pot.
Exactly. And what's really cool is that Urdu didn't just stay stuck in the court. It spread through literature, poetry, music, and eventually became a language for everybody.
That's interesting. Okay, we can't talk culture without talking food, right?
Hmm.
Mughal cuisine, it's famous for its rich flavors, the spices. What was their influence on, like, what we think of as Indian food today?
Think about it. Biryani, korma, tandoori chicken, these iconic dishes, they all have roots in Mughal culinary traditions.
Oh, come on. Now I'm getting hungry.
They brought new ingredients, new cooking techniques. They introduced saffron, almonds, pistachios, and they really perfected slow cooking, those creamy sauces.
Yeah, you can't beat a good korma.
And think about the tandoor oven, naan bread, those amazing kebabs.
Was that a Mughal thing?
Yep. The Mughals were innovators, not just in architecture, but food too. Dining was an art form for them. They had these elaborate feasts, a real emphasis on presentation.
It's like they elevated food to a whole other level.
Exactly. So architecture, art, language, food, all influenced by the Mughals.
Oh, and don't forget their governance.
Their government. They were
Wow.
known for that. They were skilled administrators. They had to be, ruling over such a vast and diverse empire. They created this centralized system, hierarchical bureaucracy.
Lots of layers. Sounds pretty complex.
It was. And that system, it influenced later rulers, even the British in many ways. Plus, they were innovative. They implemented systems for land revenue assessment. They standardized the coinage system.
Streamlining the economy, making things run smoothly. Makes sense.
Right. And they invested in infrastructure, roads, bridges, canals, rest houses. They understood that to have a strong empire, you need to be connected.
Those infrastructure projects probably had a ripple effect for generations after, don't you think?
Definitely. But even the mightiest empires eventually, they come to an end.
So what happened to the Mughal Empire? Why did it fall?
That's a tough one. Historians are still debating that. There's no easy answer. There are internal factors, external factors. It's complicated.
Like what?
Internally, you had conflict within the ruling dynasty. And the later Mughal emperors, they faced challenges from powerful regional groups like the Marathas, the Sikhs.
Right, right. And of course, there's the British East India Company. That was a big turning point.
Huge turning point. The British, they started as traders, remember? But slowly, they expanded their power, they took advantage of the weakening Mughal state, and eventually they went from merchants to rulers.
And that marked the end of Mughal rule.
In essence, yes. The formal end came in 1857. But here's the thing. Even the empire itself fell, the story didn't end there. The cultural impact, the artistic legacy, the political influence, it all lived on.
It's like the echoes of the Mughal Empire reverberated through the centuries.
That's a great way to put it. The Mughals had this profound impact that continues to shape India today.
It's a testament to how powerful culture can be, right?
Mm.
It transcends time, it outlasts empires.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that history isn't just about, dates and battles. It's about the enduring power of creativity, of human expression.
And those things, they have a way of sticking around even long after the empires that gave rise to them are gone.
You got it.
It really makes you think,
Yeah.
like what would it have been like to actually be there in Mughal India?
Right. To step back in time.
Yeah, like if you could go back, what would you be most curious to see, to experience?
Ooh, that's a good one. Would you be like a merchant in one of those bustling marketplaces, surrounded by all those, exotic goods?
Hmm, maybe.
Mhm.
Or what about like being a scholar in Akbar's court, having those debates about religion, philosophy?
Oh, that'd be intense.
Right. But you know what? I think I'd be most drawn to the architecture.
Buildings?
Yeah. Like to see one of those incredible Mughal structures being built, maybe even like help out a little.
Work alongside the artisans.
Yeah, those guys were so skilled. The detail, the precision, it's amazing.
It really is. But, whether you're a merchant or a scholar or a builder, it's like each of those perspectives gives you a different view of the Mughal era.
Right, like it's not just about the emperors and the big events. It's about the everyday people who live through it.
Exactly. Their stories, their experiences, they bring the history to life.
It's like we're piecing together this giant puzzle.
A mosaic, yeah. And each little piece, each story, it adds to the bigger picture.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Mughal India, what do you hope our listeners take away from all this?
I hope they come away with a sense of, wonder, curiosity, that they see Mughal India not as something, from the dusty pages of a history book, but as something that's still alive, in a way, today.
Yeah, I think that's so important. History isn't just about memorizing dates and names. It's about making connections, understanding how the past shapes the present.
Totally. And who knows, maybe this deep dive will spark something in our listeners. Maybe they'll want to learn more, dig deeper, explore those connections for themselves.
That would be awesome. So to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions. There's a whole world of history out there waiting to be discovered.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. It's been fun.